Hi, I'm Larry Hama, and you're listening to Talking Joes.
Joe's change their gear like a Barbie, change his clothes. Yeah, Joe dress, desert gear, touch the snow, and they have to think, always plan critically. They should know that there's a terradrome. Cause you're hot and you're cold, you're desert and you're snow, you're in and you're out, you're up and you're down, you're wrong when it's right, it's time and it's white, we fight, we break up, a hiss we take up. You don't really wanna stay, no, but you don't really wanna go. Oh, you're hot and you're cold, you're desert and you're snow, you're in and you're out, you're up and you're down.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. Now, today we will be looking at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 322, released Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025. The synopsis is Return to the Terradrome. Frostbite and SNOW JOB lead an assault on Cobra's deadly fortress, but nothing is what it seems. Now, that was the synopsis when it was revealed a few months ago. Is that what we get? Person joining me to find out will be my regular co-host. It's A Real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hi, Mark. It's so exciting to talk about this issue of G.I. Joe.
Fantastic.
I feel like just recently we were talking about 321 and what a big, exciting anniversary that was, 300 issues after the famous wordless issue. And we had been hearing sort of teases about this issue informally for a long time. And that was the return of series artist Chris Mooneyham, who we hadn't seen for a while. And it's sort of a relief to get back to a regular issue, not that 321, sometimes I use the word stunt in a negative way, and sometimes I use it in a neutral way, or even a positive way. And I think doing, a wordless issue 300 issues later is a great idea and a fun stunt. And, for 322, we're just back to normal. There's no hook for the issue that's out of the ordinary. And it's a little bit of a relief to just have a normal issue, because I feel like the pressure was on, like, oh, this 321 had better be really good, right? And Chris Mooneyham, he's had extra time, and Mark and I got to bring our A game to talk about what this means. And it's good, just some snow guys on the cover and 322.
So before we get too deep into 322, we'll do some catch up on some news. So since we last spoke, we had some reveals of what they are calling the Arah issue 1 facsimile edition in a lot of the solicits, but in the indicia, they are referring to it as the Hama cut second printing. So this is them going back to print of that issue number 1 that came out about the same time as 301. So about a year ago, that would have been that it came out originally. So a few covers for this one. First up is the top shelf variant from Marcelo Mattere, which may or may not be available in both color and black and white.
This is an artist who's known as a Transformers artist, right? This guy does a lot of
with Transformers.
He's done comics and a lot of Hasbro package art over the years, and not a connection to G.I. Joe.
And well, other than being a G.I. Joe fan and having done a couple of variant covers,
okay,
and this is an homage to the Arah issue 1, but with Cobras this time. And I think it was originally created as actually an Energon Universe piece of art, which you can see from a couple of things that Destro is looking a little bit classified in his design. Cobra Commander at the back on the tank is definitely looking like an Energon Universe Cobra Commander with the red on his sort of Napoleonic tunic,
Yeah.
and I believe that the Baroness was originally drawn as Chameleon, hence the giant sort of Barrett-style sniper rifle.
Interesting.
So an interesting cover, nice piece of art, but it being from Top Shelf, they are somewhat opaque about the distribution channels. So it might be a case of buying one of their curated blind bags, or it being a subscriber only special and then only available on eBay Market.
I find it funny when artists want to do a version of the famous Marvel issue 1 cover, but with COBRA, because the Marvel issue 1 cover, the Mobat is the star of the cover. And there is no equivalent for COBRA. And so, like, you can sort of do it with the Hiss, but the proportions are so different. It either becomes a very different arrangement of characters, or you're aware that COBRA has kind of just a regular tank. The end.
Unless you try, and I'm sure you know about this, there was the Sears exclusive Crimson.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so
black,
then in
black
that
and red
case,
tank.
Why isn't the tank here red? The answer, because it was the Energon universe. But anyway.
So next up, we have Scarlet. Looks like she's stepping up onto a tank or something, looking over her shoulder. It's a looking upwards sort of vantage point, showcasing her trivia and accessories, we'll call it now. And I think it's an excuse to at least tease the jingle that I made for the previous episode.
Turn your head. Every now and then I get a little bit bored with all the cheesecake coming around. Turn your head. Every now and then I get a little bit tired of seeing all the boobs and the ribs. Turn your head. Every now and then I get a little bit nervous, cause I have to wonder why. Your head. Every now and then I get a little bit angry seeing an ass and a thigh. Your head real wise. Every now and then I fall apart. Turn your head real wise. Will she be able to smell her own farts? And I see them on the sites. Head backwards on my screen, and I wonder if they might come with a jar of Vaseline, and they'll only be making some more, cause they sell like hotcakes at these retail events. Push it to the line. Every month we see more every time. Every time. Her boobs are in your face, her butt is too. We're living in a time where both bits need to face you. Head backwards, blight. Her head's on backwards, alright. Her head's on backwards, alright. Once upon a time I was collecting for love. Now I'm only getting tough arts. There's nothing I can do. Totally tits and some ass.
This must be a Virgin cover, because her head is so high up there wouldn't be a logo
I believe
here.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next up, this is available from MB Artist. They're calling this the Defenders of Freedom variant from artist Steve Ahola, Ahola. And we've talked about this one before, and it was revealed, and it's very much homaging the intro scene to G.I. Joe, the movie. And given we talked about it before, let's move on. This is a new reveal. It is from Peter Smith, exclusive to Comic Spot, featuring characters that are mostly, at least in some form, in G.I. Joe issue 1 from a Real American Hero, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Breaker in, well, I want to say Breaker. It could be, yes, Breaker, he's got bubblegum, but in some sort of modern military kit out, with a tank that looks a little bit more like a Mauler, with Sky Strikers and Rattlers in the background, with a big head of Cobra Commander looming in the background also.
What's this artist's name again, Mark?
This is Peter Smith.
Peter Smith. Yeah, the coloring here and the sort of style is sort of halfway between like adventure style American comics, with like musculature and spotted blacks, and then sort of an animated style where like a lot of the characters are left open and it's the color that's doing the work for the rendering. And I like the metallic quality to Cobra Commander's faceplate. I like the background, the sky, and the sort of the fire and the smoke. I find the characters and the tank here look a little bit muddy. I feel like there might be some black mixed into the colors. And I don't know if that's like an ink wash on the line art or part of the color, but this is getting a little muddy for me.
Mm-hmm. A little busy towards the bottom of the page. Peter Smith did the series of variants featuring the Silent Missions characters, where they were sort of stood in front of that kind of metallic, bassy background. Here's another one from Cedric Poulard from 616 Comics. There is a version of this with the dialogue and also a Virgin variant as well. So I believe this is the third recent Baroness cover from Cedric Poulard. She says, a 43-year legacy, and I still haven't aged a bit.
Did we talk about this cover on a previous episode?
We did, when it was previously revealed. So it's not the first time that we've seen this one.
In that case, I won't say what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Folks, you can go back to a previous episode.
And the final one is the Mike Mayhew covers, because I believe there are 4 versions of this particular, there are 4 versions of the Mike Mayhew issue number 1, 2 of which feature Snake Eyes and 2 of which feature Storm Shadow. And as always, from Mike Mayhew, it's nicely done. He is a very good and talented artist, but the not necessarily such a good fit for this particular issue would have fit a lot better on a 21 reprint or even a 321, given that Snake Eyes version 2 doesn't feature in issue 1 and Storm Shadow doesn't crop up for another 20 issues.
I've given a different version of this analogy, but if I bought a reprint of X-Men number 1 from 1964, with Cyclops and Beast before he had blue fur, and Jean Grey and Angel, and whom else am I forgetting? Cyclops. And the cover had Wolverine on it. As an object, that would be fun if it was a cool drawing of Wolverine. But in terms of brand management, I would scratch my head and say, why is Marvel putting the wrong character on this cover? So I do wish Skybound would say no a few more times to retailer exclusives where the characters aren't a good fit for the interior, right? Not only is this version of Snake Eyes and any Storm Shadow in issue number 1 of G.I. Joe, there's no ninja anything in issue number 1 of G.I. Joe. So it's not even like an indirect reference. It's like, why not Don Marino? Why not Wolverine? Actually, Mike Mayhew should definitely put Wolverine on a retailer exclusive cover to G.I. Joe number 1, and I would get both the version with the logo and without.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those cases as well where you can kind of excuse to some degree, the modern contemporary comics where they don't necessarily know exactly what the interiors are going to be because of the fact that the cover gets produced prior to the issue being figured out. So yeah, you can kind of forgive it to some extent that you might have just a bit more of a generic character profile. But when the comic has existed for 43 or so years, you know exactly what is in that issue and how you could kind of spotlight a particular scene or particular character. There's no real good reason to deviate from that too much. And then there's a couple more, Cale Nagu and Clayton Crane, who have, as at time of recording, we've not yet seen their work. Now, moving on, this is not a cover, but it is a commission by G.I. Joe cover artist John Hebert of CoverGirl. So a full figure of CoverGirl with the Wolverine in the background and her holding a giant wrench, and a colorized version of that has also been shared. I'm not too sure the source of the color, but it is out there. And yeah, given he has produced some recent covers, fun to see such a good cover quality image out there, even as a private commission.
Mark, can you remind us, John Hebert was going to draw wraparound covers as a retailer exclusive for like a bunch of years. It's all the 82 characters and vehicles, all the 83 ones. And they're in the style of the 80s Marvel handbook, white background.
That's
everyone's
right.
running to the right. And we have seen the first 2 or 3 of those. And Hebert
I think we
was
might have
sort
seen 3 now.
of, okay. Hebert was promising, was it like 82 to 88 or 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a tease that they might keep on going. If there's demand for it, they might keep on going. And then next up, again from Top Shelf Comic, we've got 2 covers from George Vega. This time it is coloured by Alex Sinclair. This particular one was a New York Comic Con exclusive, and this was solicited for, this related to G.I. Joe issue 320, and then it had a companion piece for G.I. Joe issue 321 of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and forming a sort of a joined image. Snake Eyes is on the left, sort of jumping up in the air, looking, sort of making me think of the style of Robert Atkins. Then Storm Shadow is in his classic gear on the right, so sort of forming one single image. There's a pagoda behind Snake Eyes with timber, and the Silent Castle is behind Storm Shadow. There's a couple of Easter eggs in here that was pointed out to me by the artist himself. The rocks that Timber are standing on is an homage to the rocks on the René Gar very exclusive cover edition that was on, I think it was the original, it was on Devil's Due issue 21 by Michael Turner. So quite a niche little homage there to Rocky Outcrop. And on the pagoda, the windows form an Arashikage logo. And behind Storm Shadow, he has got a broken bow. And I was like, what's that an homage to? Has there been a scene a famous scene with Storm Shadow where he breaks his bow? And George said, no, it's because, when you got the toy when you were little, it was very fragile and the bow would always break. So
Mark,
what that is an homage to.
Did you say that this was a 320 and a 321 cover, or it was, how does this divide?
I believe the Snake Eyes was 320 and the Storm Shadow was 321.
Okay. Alex Sinclair gets a lot of work from Marvel and DC, and I would have a different approach to this cover.
In the 321 there, you've got George Vega there.
Okay. Mark is holding up his copy of 321 and opening it to the inside front cover where the cover credits are.
Yeah. His name was on the credits of both 320 and 321.
I briefly met George Vega in Texas at the DFW show this past June, where he was selling prints.
Very good. So what is next? Recently solicited or announced was G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero Deluxe Edition Book 1. So that came in 2 flavors, a G.I. Joe version and then also a COBRA version. This is sort of like just a variant, which is what Skybound have been doing a lot with their trade paperback editions or collected editions, that they might have a G.I. Joe and a COBRA version. And both of these covers are new pieces of art by Andy Kubert with Brad Walker.
Can you go back to the previous slide, Mark? So I see a name I don't recognize. One more. I see a name I don't recognize here for the G.I. Joe cover, not the image itself. The image itself, I think I just see a signature that says Andy Kubert. Can you go to the one with the credits under it? It says cover A by Andy Kubert, Andy Dusso, and Laura Martin. And Andy Dusso is not a name I have seen in comics. And the arrangement here feels like that would be the inker. But Andy Kubert has been inking his own covers for many years now. So I wonder what this means. And we should be there's 2 words. There's 4 words where I'll add to your description here. These are both hardcovers, so each of these is 2 soft covers worth So the volume 1 and the volume 2 soft covers are combined here. And we think that means that they'll have some of the covers inside.
Yeah. So they'll I think they have got 10 issues worth of story in this from memory, and they'll have a bunch of extras in the back. Actually, the Cobra cover is Brad Walker and Laura Martin. Looks like it looks so close to the the layout and the execution of the first one that I just kind of assumed it was the same person. But
when I saw it as a tiny thumbnail in a catalog, I thought, cool, Andy Kubert's doing both covers, and they're both really awesome images. And so this is a direct market exclusive, this Cobra cover, which means if your comic book store orders from Lunar, you can get this. If your comic book store is only ordering from Penguin Random House, it can't. And Mark, remind me, has Brad Walker done a couple G.I. Joe covers, or is this he's done some of those 1 in 10s?
Yeah, it was 1 in 10 or cover B, I think it might have even been for about the first 8-ish covers.
This was where there was a Joe in the foreground and a big Cobra in the background for like 301 to 310.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Skybound, when you are ready to pay Brad Walker the big money, or Mr. Walker, when you can clear your schedule to draw not just a cover, but 20 interior pages of an issue of G.I. Joe, be it a regular one or a fill-in or a special issue that's got some hook, I am ready to read your comic and then talk about it for 2 hours.
Excellent stuff. And I think we covered this a little bit previously, the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero Compendium 3, so collecting material from the Marvel era, has also been solicited for next year with a new cover from Andy Kubert. And now I'm going to have to look at that signature. It does look like it's Laura Martin.
I believe there's a pre-publication error here. I don't remember precisely offhand which issues Compendium 3 collects, but I don't think if it's the end of Special Missions, you could put Trimpe's name there. Vosberg did not come back. So, and Wiggum did do 116 to 118, but I believe this should say Hama, Bright, Wildman, because we're getting into the like issue 90s and the 100s or the 100 teens or the 120s.
They might not have got quite as far as Wildman era.
Okay. I think they're
collecting about 50 issues total at a time with extras. Right. So I'm not, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I think probably Wildman would be volume 4. Mark from the future here with a quick editor's note. Compendium Volume 3 covers issue 77 through to the Benzene War in issue 113, along with a whole host of special missions. So that does include art from both Rod Wiggum and Herb Trimpe, but also big chunks of art by M.D. Bright, as well as a number of other artists such as John Statemer. You've got kind of a bit of an anonymous Joe in the top right-hand corner, which maybe is that guy from, is it cover 5 that sort of got the beret and is sort of charging towards us?
Hawk with white hair. I think this is supposed to be...
Might be Colton.
I think it's Falcon, but
and with a machine gun.
Not colored correctly. We could also say it's Joseph Colton, but I'm sure that this absolutely does not get up to issue 152. So in the same way that Quick Kick is missing his red strap with throwing stars on the cover to Compendium 2, I'm seeing a thing here that I really hope they fix, and I know they won't before this book is printed. And I know that G.I. Joe characters have like a million details on them and little like color changes. It's like, don't forget the tiny bits of red on Mutt's shoulders. But something like that is the difference between, say, Falcon and Joe Colton. And, you know, if you put Wolverine on a cover in his yellow and blue costume and you leave out the blue, everyone's going to notice. So I'm lightly shaking my fist, Skybound. Please ask Mr. Kubert and Ms. Martin to go back in and do a couple fixes here.
There was also sort of saw people pointing out that Doc here is sort of, what's he doing? I think the device that he's got that came with him is meant to be like a flared signal.
I think he's holding that right, actually.
It's not firing, and but yeah, who knows exactly what he's trying to accomplish with that particular device. So that brings us to G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 322, the focus of today's episode. And spoilers from almost this point out. We'll talk about the credits and the covers, and then we'll be in spoiler territory. So this is brought to us as normal by Larry Hama. Paul Pelletier returns once again. Inker is Tony Kordos. Colorist Francesco Segala. Flatter Sabrina del Grosso. Letterer Pat Brousseau. And then Diana D. Davis is our creative consultant.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Okay. Cover A is drawn by Andy Kubert and colored by Laura Martin. This is really fun. 3 Arctic guys from G.I. Joe, Iceberg and Snow Job. And up front, I actually thought that this was Blizzard, but I think based on the story, this is, well, Sub-Zero doesn't have goggles. Frostbite has goggles, but Frostbite has a beard and mustache. And anyway, okay, I think logically this is Frostbite.
Frostbite, yeah.
But my brain says, oh, that's Blizzard, who's not even in this issue, which I will totally allow. Anyway, and they're all buried in snow and in the process of sort of popping up out of the snow during a snowstorm. The cover is mostly white with some light blue. It's nighttime. The top fifth of the cover in the distance is black, so nighttime. You don't see it because the logo's in the way, but you can see it on the inside front cover. In the distance, behind all this snow and sort of 2 mountains, is a trashed terradrome. And each of these 3 Joes is in badass mode, where they're looking serious and they're frowning, and they've all got weapons. And Iceberg is about to fire, Snow Job is about to fire, and the guy in front has just fired. And this is just a very cool, exciting cover. I very much appreciate that Laura Martin got the little bits of green onto Iceberg's costume. And I'm going to talk about this when we get inside the issue. As a kid, I always appreciated that if you were into G.I. Joe for a couple years, or if you had a friend or a family member who had been into G.I. Joe, you didn't just have one underwater guy or one snow guy, or maybe one jungle guy or one astronaut guy, but eventually you'd have 2 or 3 or 4, right? And so you could have like a snow mission, right? Maybe you were a kid with a white towel or a white carpet somewhere in your home, and you could have an Arctic mission with just the Arctic guys, or the Arctic guys sort of got to spotlight. And this is something that Larry Hama hasn't done much of. I forget what it was. It was around 130. I feel like there was an issue or 2 in the IDW run where it was.
There was that Dan Schoening issue.
Oh, I was okay. You're thinking.
Sorry, I thought you said. Sorry, no, I'm getting confused. I thought I was. You said one thing, I heard another thing.
No, this is good. You were reminding me of a previous sort of all out Arctic action issue by Hama, which was like 276 or something. But much earlier in like, did I say 130? I meant 230. I think there was an issue or 2 with like the whale and Cutter and Shipwreck and Wetsuit and Torpedo. And I love this stuff. And so when I saw the preview image for this cover some time ago, I thought I did a Kevin McAllister Home Alone fist pump. Yes. So I've been waiting for this very regular issue with no anniversary stunt ever since.
And down the bottom of the cover, I was sort of looking at this, going, kind of what's going on here. And I think it is a smoking gun barrel that this guy Frostbite or whoever has fired a shot. His gun barrel is smoking, and it's sort of just popping slightly out of the snow. I
have one more observation here. You know why my brain can't accept that this is Frostbite?
Is it because you can't see his big smile, his toothy grin?
I've always paid attention to it's like how many Real American Hero figures between 82 and 94 were smiling? 2. It's that Frostbite has been such a tiny part of G.I. Joe, right? He's barely in one episode of the cartoon. He's basically not in the comic book. And so to give him half of a cover, even if he's, covered up by snow and sort of cropped out of the image, my brain logically can't accept that. It's like, no, you'd have Snow Job in the front, or you'd have, Sub-Zero or Blizzard, right? Like Blizzard, I think, showed up once, and Sub-Zero, I don't know. And then the sort of nerd part of me is like, oh, well, Iceberg doesn't have his actual weapon from 1986, and Snow Job doesn't have his actual weapon from, was it 83 or 84? And then I went online to see if these are instead their classified weapons. And I didn't realize Iceberg has yet to have a classified figure. And that is not Snow Job's classified weapon. So I'm going to chalk this up to writer and or editor and or creative consultant making suggestions to Andy Kubert for realistic, specific machine guns that these guys have, or Andy Kubert just picking something. And it's not what I would have picked, but there's a good chance that if the Joes were to grab, a weapon from a closet of weapons, might be this one.
Very good.
Cover B is black and white, just from Kubert's inks, and it is striking as always. Cover C is the 1-in-10 ratio variant. Your comic book retailer has to order 10 copies in any combination of covers A and B in order to be able to order one of these. And mathematically, if they order 78 copies of A and B combined, they can order up to 7 of these. Orange flat background. This is painted. It's by Steve Beach. We're looking up at the Skyhawk, which has its thrusters vertical, so it's in VTOL mode. And there are 2 blasts of yellow thrusts coming down. We can't see the pilot, but I'm seeing a tiny bit of red. So I'm guess Scarlet, or someone wearing a red helmet. So lift ticket, or Frostbite wearing a red helmet, because he's making all kinds of appearances with just the top of his head. In fact, I think he's in every background of issue 321 in the shadows. We just can't see him. And hanging from the skids of this Skyhawk on cover C of 322 is Duke, who's grimacing and firing a machine gun and wearing a bulletproof vest that makes him feel much more modern and kind of like the IDW, 2009 era, or even the Energon universe, and a little less of the 1980s Duke. But objection, Your Honor, sustained. I'll allow it.
And this is the second Gears of Joe variant that we're seeing from Steve Beach. A few more of these to come. And listener Matt Mason did this recreation of the cover using a classified Duke. And I don't know if that would have been a 6-inch version of the Skyhawk or a bit of manipulation, but whatever it is that he's done, he's sort of done this cool version of the cover, or maybe even the what's it called? The toy. I forget the name of the brand. The G.I. Joe adjacent manufacturer that has released their version of the Skyhawk. Okay, it's called Fans Hobby Air Eagle. Right. So what is up next? Oh, it is a variant of the Baroness. Oh dear.
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
And again, it's not that we don't like the Baroness or we don't like cool drawings of her. It's that if there's sort of no story, if it's just her in front of, a blank color or some like flame, and if she's taking like a kind of sexy pose. Anyway, I'm just going to write this all on an index card, and in future episodes, I'll just hold up the index card, and people who are listening and not watching will think, oh, Tim's doing that little bit about Baroness covers. Who's this by?
This is from Chris Ng, and it's from 616 Comics, and I think he's done a Scarlet cover in this sort of similar style. So it's sort of his grouping with that Scarlet cover. Companion piece is what I was trying to think of.
Actually, so this one we're looking at right now, where there's no background, but there's just a flat red in the like physical location where Baroness is standing in this scene. That's not like magical blank flat red. That's a curtain that's been lit evenly so that it's flat. And standing behind it is Frostbite. Okay,
good to know.
And he's smiling.
Right. So let's get into the issue, and let's introduce it with a little plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
A desert G.I. Joe team of Lady J, Dusty, Lightfoot, and Mongoose are in the Benzene Desert in a Desert Fox, while an Arctic team of Frostbite, Iceberg, Snow Job, and Sub-Zero are in a Snowcat in the frozen lands of Fruzenland. Both teams get on foot and sneak closer to do a recon on the terradromes in their respective locations under construction by Cobra and Revanche. A sandstorm comes in to threaten to engulf the Joes in the desert, leaving one option, a full frontal attack, so that they can seek shelter in the terradrome. In the snow, the other team spot a box which looks to contain a Kryton nuclear trigger, leading to a full frontal attack from them. Once inside, both teams figure out that the terradromes contain the components of a dirty bomb. They take the dispensers away with them and call in hazmat disposal teams, both teams making an exfil in a Cobra vehicle and leaving the terradromes behind them. The end. Or to be continued. We don't know.
Yeah. Comics, G.I. Joe issues don't say to be continued anymore, and have not in a long time. Okay, my top-down broad reaction to this issue is that it's a little bit of a take on Diptych, Larry Hama's issue 125 from Marvel Run, where he's telling two parallel stories. And back then, there was the same number of panels per page or scenes from one location to the next. So it's like the opening page, I forget, it's like 2 panels for location A and 2 panels for location B. And then you turn the page and it's like full splash for A, full splash for B. And then you turn the page and it's like 3 panels for location A and then 3 panels for location B. And this is not as precise, but the same kind of storytelling concept is happening here.
Ooh, it is kind of as precise, Tim. We've got 2 pages, 2 pages, 2 pages, 2 pages.
Page breakdown, yes. Panel breakdown, no.
Okay, right.
So the first page is 3 little panels and a big panel in the desert, right? And then you go ahead a little bit, and the first page for the snow is 1 big panel and then 2 little panels. So, and I wasn't like disappointed, like, oh, Larry Hama's not doing Diptych again. I was like, oh, how close is he getting to that sort of precise rule for the issue? I'm happy to see the return of terradromes, and terradromes used in the way that Hasbro was intending, and the comic book used to great effect many years ago, both at Marvel and at IDW. I always forget that. Is it Major Blood? There's that like 2-issue. Is it in the 190s? The terradromes come back in the IDW run. As previously mentioned, I love seeing an Arctic team, a snow team, and also there is no specific desert. You couldn't assemble a desert team, right? Because Mark, is Dusty the only desert specialist in G.I. Joe?
You put me on the spot there. I think Mongoose is in the team, which makes a lot of sense because he's the kind of Middle Eastern expert, you know, which leans into desert as well. And the season 1 episodes once or twice have Recondo doing jungle stuff in a way that feels adjacent to Dusty doing
desert stuff. So you could throw him in. And this is not to say that Lady J and Lightfoot can't be there. I'm happy for, one team to be all 4 guys in white snow uniforms and then the other team to be a variety led by Dusty. And Lightfoot is one of those weird characters that maybe represents for some fans sort of G.I. Joe starting to get too colorful, too silly, too high tech or even sci-fi because of his nutty helmets and the little tank robot that the original action figure comes with, and his weapon that is not like just a cool machine gun. It's like a scanning thing, right? But also yellow, right? No one loves Scoop or Airtight because they're smothered in yellow, right? Although the Secto Viper, yellow and black, looks good.
Yeah, and given this looks to be a bit, it feels like it's a nighttime mission. They could have gone with a Night Force Lightfoot, so it felt like a little bit of a lost opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. That seems like the kind of thing which would have never happened in any Larry Hama version of G.I. Joe, Marvel or IDW or Skybound, because Night Force was a Toys R Us exclusive. And so I don't think anyone would have been saying to Marvel back then, oh, if you're going to have Lightfoot show up, now that it's 6 months later, put him in his brown costume, right? So Toys R Us can sell those toys because, that stuff was not going to get advertised unless by Toys R Us directly. So I absolutely agree with your logic. And as a fan thing, I would love it if someone had thought Night Force. But color artist Francesco Segala tones down the very bright yellow of Lightfoot's costume. So it doesn't seem terrible here, but it is pretty bright. And then my final sort of overall comment here is there are a couple minor coloring errors, which bum me out. So before I nitpick on those, Mark, what's your, and then we'll talk about the ending maybe at the end of the episode. Mark, what's your overall take?
I think a handful of takes. One is it's interesting to see this parallel story of this to and fro between a hot and a cold kind of scene where the Joes, similar sized group in a similar sized vehicle on a similar mission to do this recon against the Terradrome, doing a full frontal kind of attack at the same sort of time, finding the same MacGuffin in both, and then leaving again with a literal kind of parallel split shot on that last page where you've got the tanks, one on one side, one on the other. And when we were looking at issue 320, I observed that there was this real parallel between the Joe team sort of escaping Cobra Island and the Joe team escaping Springfield, and those really sort of being very parallel storylines. And this one, even very much in that same sort of bent of these mirroring stories. And one being hot, one being cold, sort of, I guess, emphasizing that mirroring aspect. And Paul Pelletier said that when he was doing that, reading the script and interpreting it, he was much more conscious of that mirroring in this particular storyline. The other one was a kind of response to the ending. I was thinking to myself, is this a one shot, a one and done? And we might never return to this kind of plot point, or is it potentially part of an ongoing storyline? And I think you've got a 50-50 chance on that one, that either we'll be continuing right on into this same storyline next issue, or we'll just never see it again. But it did feel a lot more like a kind of a one and done special mission of these specialized squads going into an environment, a lesser seen squads. It's not the Hama's normal A-listers, apart from maybe Lady J there. And so it's a bit more of a specialized squad showcasing some favorite characters, but lesser seen characters in these specialized vehicles and terrains. So sort of really the kind of thing that we would kind of expect to see from a special mission comic back in the day. And indeed, we did have a couple of kind of those Arctic type special missions in the original Marvel run. Yeah, that was kind of my feel for the issue.
It's nice to see Paul Pelletier back. He did not draw last month's issue.
2, 3, 4. So we got 3 more issues from him before we get a change of artist for 3 to 5, which I believe it will be the return of another favourite. It's not been solicited yet, so I won't say his name out loud.
But that guy who's done the book, whose work we like. I just continue to be so pleased with all of the faces and bodies that Paul Pelletier draws. His characters have such warmth. You're probably tired of hearing this, folks, but both Mark and I really do see a lot of Alan Davis in Paul Pelletier and John Byrne, and just very, very handsome. His vehicles are quite good. I still see a little bit of getting used to them. Right now we're looking at an image of page 3, which is this big opening panel with the Arctic team, and we're looking down at the Snowcat, and that's my favorite. That and the Ostriker tie for my favorite vehicle. And I had a Snowcat, and I still have my childhood Snowcat. And I think about the Snowpedos a lot and how they were used in the television commercial where like a kid like takes it off and then pushes it and it like slides down some fake snow, and then I think another kid like flips a ferret or something upside down.
G.I. Joe Snowcat holds 10 Joes, and it's got a missile rack and torpedo skis. G.I. Joe!
Cobra's on the run! Yo, Joe!
G.I. Joe Snowcat. Other Joe and Cobra figures and equipment sold separately from Hasbro.
And that vehicle, and it was used in the cartoon once. That particular accessory, like a missile torpedo on a ski, is so fun and bonkers. And the talented Mr. Pelletier draws here just a missile on the side, and I don't see the ski, and I miss it. And then the rack of missiles on the back. The original toy had 4, and the classified one has, I don't know, like 27 or something. I'm kidding. And here it's got 6, and I think that's a reasonable sort of beefing up of the vehicle. But I'm a purist when it comes to the sort of proportions of these original vehicles, and I would prefer to just see 4 missiles. If there's some like Rise of Cobra, Pursuit of Cobra redo where they like changed the piece on the back and it now had 6, then I stand corrected, and that's certainly canon. That could get thrown in there. I very much appreciate, while I'm focusing on Pelletier drawing the Snowcat, I very much appreciate that he draws the logo, the like growling cat face on the side. That was a sticker that Tim applied in 1985 to his Snowcat. And the windshield wiper, one of the niftiest accessories in all of G.I. Joe, because the windshield was clear where the windshield wiper had scraped and was frosted and slightly opaque where it wasn't. And Pelletier drew the windshield wiper here. And then since we're looking at the pencils, I just want to point out, I'm a fan of diagonal lines when they mean weather or glass in comics. And so in this first panel and this third panel, we have lines that show that it's snowing, right? And this is something that sometimes artists nowadays don't draw. They let the color artists do it, which is okay. And in that second panel, behind Frostbite, there are some diagonal lines. A universal symbol for window is 3 parallel, slightly offset diagonal lines, and just some handsome faces in there. So it's nice that Pelletier is back. And let's talk for a minute, Mark, specifically about the action in this issue, because we've got Joe vehicles, we've got Joes with sidearms and bigger weapons, and we have Joes taking on like a blue ninja and some, I think we're now saying cyborg cobras, not zombie cobras. We have a Revenge cocktail waitress from the Cobra Casino. And then at the end, both Joe teams commandeer a Cobra vehicle. And so is there anything sort of particular you want to say about the actual, running, shooting, punching, jumping, driving of this issue? Because, for all the like G.I. Joe stuff that we talk about, that ends up being sort of some of the most thrilling stuff. It's like, what's Cobra Commander going to say? Or like, what's Snake Eyes' backstory? It's like, no, who's going to like swing down with a sword, right? So here's some Joes with weapons and vehicles and fists.
Yeah, I mean, it struck me that they were trying to do a couple of things in terms of having a different cast of character and not necessarily all of the same old characters. So we've got a bunch of different characters, and they've typically kitted them out with their right gear. There's it's quite, I guess, an action packed issue. It's got the return of just one of those standard blue ninjas that we've not seen in a little while, with his not a lightsaber, what's energy fiber filament weapon, whatever it is that he calls it.
Energy saber on.
and one of the Betty casino gals, which just seems entirely weird, but there you have it. You've got a casino robot in the middle of the desert, sort of doing a lot of the bossing around. There was one particular element of the action which I thought was sort of went oof, which I think was when Lady J took out a desert scorpion who was sort of manning the turret of the Hiss 3 that she jumped onto the back of, and she sort of shot him in the back of the head, and with quite a big red explosive exit wounds there, which sort of snuck through a lot of the other exit wounds that we see, like for example on the following page to that one are just a standard, more of a yellow burst of sort of kinetic energy rather than full on brains and blood shooting out.
But it's cyborg brains and blood, so it's okay. No, I mean, someone says it's the cyborg cobras, right?
Yeah, and I'm sort of slightly confused by, in part, about kind of who these cobras are and who they're working for, who they're being directed by. Because I think at this point you've got these competing factions. You've got Revanche, who are in control of Cobra Island. You've got Destro, who is in theory in control of Springfield. And you've got Cobra Commander, who's just escaped from Destro and is on the loose. So I guess the implication is that this is the Revanche leading this particular plan with their Blue Ninja and Casino Gal in command, but directing some enhanced Cobras.
So on page 4, panel 3, someone, asterisk, I'll get back to this, says, our mission is to ascertain why Revanche is erecting terror drones in remote locations. So there it's spelled out. I agree. Even with that, as I read this, I thought, okay, all right, Serpentor Khan's dead, and the Alpha 001 remade Mindbender and is control of some of Cobra. And I'd sort of forgotten that Cobra Commander had escaped, even though we spent a lot of time talking about that very cool scene 2 issues ago. And I think if we were to like corner Larry Hama right now and say, okay, what faction and where is Cobra Commander in charge of? I think his answer could be whatever the next issue needs it to be. That if he needs to like pull something out of thin air and in an immediate future issue, have Cobra Commander say like, I've activated some reserves from this location we haven't heard of or talked about in a while, right? Or we could cut back to like Broca Beach. And even though I don't know if that belongs to Cobra Commander or technically because it's like Springfield, it would sort of fall under Revenge and Alpha 001. But, with sort of the wave of a wand, with one sentence of dialogue, you could have anyone in Broca Beach say, oh, we sure kicked out those Revenge cyborg enhanced Cobras, and it's back to being like a Cobra Commander town. Or Hama could write a scene where that takeover, that throw out happens. Or, very quickly he could have Cobra Commander and Destro make up But I do agree, even though we just had a kind of Cobra civil war, I would like some sort of distinct Cobra infighting coming up, or some sort of very clearly drawn lines. And I think part of our maybe I don't know if confusion is the word, is that the visual of a Revenge character directing some Cobra characters is like a mix, right? Because you see a Toxo Viper and a Techno Viper, and you think, oh, Cobra, right? But then it's like, no, but they're cyborgs. So, oh, okay, so they're Revenge, right? But they're not mutants, so you don't have that visual where one of them has a tentacle. And for being cyborgs, they don't act any differently. They're not like jumping much higher or like throwing a Joe 30 feet. They get taken out about as easy as regular Cobras. I think the conceit really is now we can just shoot them. Like in the head. I guess so. It's like we can show exit wounds, we can shoot them because it's Transformers, it's oil, it's Stormtroopers. Like you just zap them and they fall over, right? But the minute you shoot like an 86 Viper or an 82 Cobra Soldier, that's a man.
Once a man.
I want to talk about color. I love Francesco Segala's work on this book. There are just like two dominant colors in this entire issue. There's the sort of white with a very light blue and dull gray for the Arctic stuff. And then there's this sort of pale yellow, beige for the desert stuff. And yet from scene to scene, there are differences, right? Where in the opening 2 pages, and then on page 3, 4, 5, every time we're in this desert scenario and the characters and the backgrounds are all kind of this like dirty sort of mustard color. But look at the moon and those mountains in the background. Those are like an aqua, right? And similarly, if you go from scene to scene within the Arctic mission, there's more blue or there's less blue, but then they get inside halfway through the book. They're inside the terror drome. This page 19, second to last page. And so much of the blue drops out. This is the page where we're looking down and we see a red missile in this cylinder and then 2 big fat red missiles on a cart. And all the blue drops out and the whites of the page are much closer to white, but there's like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of sort of purple gray all throughout these whites. Okay, so all that said, there's a color error that makes me sad. And that is on page 4. Page 4, panel 2. Panel 3. The Joes have gotten out of the snowcat, and one of them is saying, our mission is to ascertain why Revenge is erecting terror drones in remote locations. This should be a piece of cake. And that's a white guy, but that's actually Iceberg. And I know that because 2 of the Joes on this mission have a beard and mustache. And of the other 2, Sub-Zero, he has a hood. And Iceberg just has a cap. He has like a cap that's the top half of his head. And you can see it on the cover. And in this panel, he's pulled his goggles down. And I would be, whatever the coloring mistake it is, right? If an Alley Viper is colored yellow, but not yellow and black, right? If an Alley Viper is colored like, not like orange and blue, but like yellow and blue, it's like, that's a coloring mistake that just makes me sad. I wish someone had caught it. I hope it gets fixed for the digital versions and the next paperback collection, and fingers crossed, a later hardcover collection. But I identify G.I. Joe characters by their color schemes so strongly. And part of why I read comics is for the color, like I look at like a lineup of X-Men, Cyclops, blue and yellow with a little bit of red, right? Or, Nightcrawler, like black, red, and then his blue fur skin, right? And these combinations just make me happy, and coloring mistakes make me sad. So I hope this gets fixed. Okay, so secondarily to this, and I think technically that's also Iceberg, who's the second person speaking on the previous panel. I think he's saying, this is a sneak and peek recon, avoid contact, and no shooting unless fired on, and then only to break contact, ... right? That implies that the first person to speak in the next panel is going to continue this thought. So the guy who's bending over and putting on a snowshoe, there's like the tiniest amount of space sort of under the goggles for that to have a complexion. And I think that person should also be African-American. So that's, okay. So secondarily, Of these 4 Arctic guys, right? Again, when I think of G.I. Joe, I think of color schemes. Snow Job is all white with a little bit of black for his belt and like his goggles, and then a big bright red beard. And Frostbite is like one of the like underpainted G.I. Joe figures, right? Just all white. And then like white teeth, like white teeth, not Caucasian teeth. And then, like a black beard. Iceberg, the action figure, has a little bit of green on some of the accessories and the lightest tint of like mint green on his sort of sleeveless vest overcoat, right? And he's got like white sleeves that poke through. And this is alluded to on the cover of this issue. And then similarly, Sub-Zero is in all white and then has some blue on his outfit for like the ruffle of his hood and I forget his belts or his like straps or something, right? And this is a way to make these characters not boring because they would just be in all white, right? Because the minute you put anything in color on a guy, that's why they wrap their weapons in like white cloth or whatever. Mm-hmm. So here on page 4, where I noticed this complexion thing with Iceberg, Segala seems to be putting a little bit of green onto Iceberg's gun belt thing. And I thought, cool. I really want the vest under it to have that little bit of mint, but okay, close enough. But then on pages 6 and 8, when he gets Iceberg's complexion right, he's coloring those straps sort of like brown. And then jumping ahead to pages 11 and 12 and 15, Sub-Zero correctly has some blue details on his white costume, the fringe on his hood and his like straps, but then not on page 19. And I know this is a hard book to create, and so everyone gets some leeway, but I really want all the color schemes, to be accurate. If character's really far away and it's like you get the purple and the blue on a Televiper mixed up and they're really small and far away, close enough. Or if you're doing a knockout, if someone is like close to the camera but we're looking past them, and you just like bathe them in like dark blue, that's fine. But when we see a character sort of under normal circumstances, I really want these small, subtle differences to be accurate.
Yeah, and sort of speaking of accuracy, I think you do get to see Iceberg briefly with his sort of giant, giant weapon that he's got in his package, in his bubble on the toy there, and in
page
terms
11.
of
final panel, page 11, you're talking about Iceberg holding his big machine gun. And an earlier panel on that page, ... Mark.
On an earlier panel on that page.
I think you're going to point out that Sub-Zero has his giant machine gun.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah, Sub-Zero's also got his giant machine gun. But more specific to this issue, I think this might well be the first comics appearance of Sub-Zero, which is, it's mad that this is a character introduced in 1990. And all of these years and issues on, this is probably the first time that he's had any sort of significant appearance in a G.I. Joe comic, or particularly a Larry Hama G.I. Joe comic.
Okay,
with his oversized gun, his sort of very specific hood, and also his very specific snow booties as well. Because did you notice as they're putting their snow boots on, they're actually putting them on in different shapes, and Sub-Zero is putting on those sort of more circular.
Yeah, and everyone else is putting on
boots.
the COBRA snow serpents, like teardrop shaped
closer
ones.
to that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Objection, Your Honor, sustained. I'll allow it.
And speaking of specifics of using Sub-Zero in his file card, the file card is the go-to place to find out about the actual character themselves. It says, as an anonymous quote, "All the other G.I. Joe Arctic specialists like the cold, not Sub-Zero. He hates it to the max. It drives him so far at the wall that it brings out a special kind of meanness unheard of in the Western world." We're talking maximum meanness. So why does he keep volunteering for cold weather assignments? Because he enjoys being mean. And he, there is an element of him specifically not enjoying the cold. On the back of the Snowcat, Snow Job says, "As far as I'm concerned, it's kind of toasty back here." And Sub-Zero replies, "Speak for yourself, Bunny Slope. I'm freezing my short follicles." And he certainly is, I don't know if the word is mean, but slightly impetuous in terms of going headfirst into to leading an assault on Cobra before it feels like the rest of the Joes are quite teed up, ready to join him. They're kind of a little bit on the back foot, right? They're like, okay, if he's attacking, I guess that means we have to join in.
Mark, is short follicles a euphemism for balls? Like I'm freezing my balls off?
Something like that. Short and curlies, I sort of imagined.
Okay, this short follicles is not a term I have heard. What else did I want to talk about this issue? Okay, Mongoose has a sort of regular costume, right? We have seen him in enough issues now, and certainly when he was introduced. Do you remember what Mongoose's costume is? Because he's sort of in a desert camo with like a sort of like a beanie type hat, I think, that kind of thing. And it's like short sleeve, long sleeve, tucked in jacket.
Yeah, a sort of a generic kind of desert kind of camo type outfit, I think. So
sort of like if you crossed like Flint and Dusty, just like
that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think here he's meant to be like in mufti, in disguise as kind of like a Bedouin in the desert with his, camel there. So I guess he stays in that gear pretty much all of the issue, really, doesn't he?
Yes.
And towards the end, it comes off, and you can see his cap now once he's taken off his robes.
Right. Okay. Good. Very good. So I've made the point that if all the Joes go underwater. I don't want them. I don't want them in wetsuits. I just want wetsuit and torpedo or version 2 of Shipwreck in wetsuits, even though that's unrealistic. And if all the Joes are in the Arctic, I don't want them all wearing like big white coats. It's like in the animated movie, I appreciate that they have some like slight or in the Pyramid of Darkness, they have some slight adjustments. It's like Quick Kick is sometimes barefoot in the Arctic, but other times he has a white coat. But then his red strap with throwing stars goes over it because that's the thing. It's like if you have an Arctic Batman, I don't want Batman wearing a white coat. I want him wearing a white suit with the bat symbol on his chest because that's what makes him Batman. All of that said, if there are 4 Joes in a sandstorm, I'm okay if all of them put on goggles. And I did notice here that Lightfoot has a helmet. And we'll pretend that the helmet like sort of seals his eyes, like a pair of goggles. Certainly, Dusty has pulled his goggles down and put them on. And I thought, poor Mongoose, poor Lady J. I wish Dusty would give them his spare goggles. So, objection, Your Honor. Oh, was I misusing sustained? Yeah, this one's sustained, and the previous ones were
overruled.
Overruled. Anyway. Okay, I want to talk about. Okay, there's one bit of action here. Is this page 10? I'm seeing 2 staples, so we must be halfway through. 13, 15. Page 15, there's an inset panel and then big second panel under it where Sub-Zero is sort of diagonal and there's a shadow over him. And he says, if I roll to the left, and then the next panel, he says, the wolf will pass me. And I thought, I feel like this is a little bit of that someone describing what's happening because either the art didn't show it or I don't know.
It's not completely clear.
Yeah, I don't know if Hama like wanted to add something or called something out and Pelletier didn't quite visualize it. But I feel like that could be pantomime, that could be wordless. Because I know that when I'm in the Arctic, when I'm in the snow and a tank drives past me, I don't like say out loud what I'm going to do for the benefit of tens of thousands of people reading my adventures. Okay, so how do you feel, Mark, about this surprise that it's not just terradromes, without fire bats, it's something else. It's even something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not just some sort of nuclear device. It's a dirty bomb nuclear device in 2 locations and under the control of Revanche, what are they doing? What are they playing at? It's, it's big stakes, isn't it? And also, weaponized in terms of it being launched to a Firebat type silo launch device. So it's, to propel it somewhere in the world. So, yeah, I guess it's big stakes. And, don't know quite what maybe Revanche's agenda is, where they're coming from here. So I wonder if it will play out. It doesn't seem quite in their wheelhouse in terms of what we've seen from them before, that they've been relatively more focused and wanting to, as an enemy, wanting to present a somewhat legitimate front and not necessarily just be an out-and-out terrorist. So maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But I thought, it's big stakes, but slightly out of left field, perhaps.
So, Hama has talked about how he writes and, he makes it up as he goes, and he's got like an A plot and a B plot, and those chug along, and he'll introduce a C plot. And then an issue or two or three later, the A plot wraps up and the B plot becomes the A plot, the C plot becomes the B plot, and then a new D plot is the C plot. And so it's possible or likely that Hama's like, terradromes, Revanche, no firebats, nukes, dirty bombs. It's like, what does this mean? I'll figure it out when Ben Abernathy makes me turn in a plot in, 3 to 5 weeks. And I don't say that callously, right? You're chuckling. I would find writing that way very stressful. And I'm glad I don't have to write the Joe Monthly comic. But we sort of every month hope that all the stuff that Hama's like conjuring and throwing at the wall, he'll react to it well a month or two later when it's time to carry it forward. That is an interesting point you made about this. This was maybe a self-contained issue, like a special missions issue. And I want to talk about the ending and the final page, because when I got to the final page, I was disappointed. I felt like the story wanted one or two more elements. And what I was really sort of expecting was either one bit of dialogue on the final page that's a little bit of a punctuation, or like in the foreground on the bottom of this page where we're seeing the ground in the desert and some sort of close-up like ice snow formations in the Arctic, like one remaining or new COBRA agent who's seeing this happening. And that's sort of like a promise to us that more is coming, like whether it's just some Viper or someone more specific, like, not Zartan, but, not just any Viper, or someone saying something like, I'm going to radio Destro and let him know. Or like, like on the final page, if like one of the cyborgs is like, little did the Joes know that I planted a bomb on the Hiss that they're driving away in. Or, the Joes took out the 5 of us, but they didn't realize that the 6th cyborg Viper is hiding under the Hiss, right? Or like, I thought there was going to be one more element. And so the ending felt a little flat to me. And I know that having a wordless final page runs that risk, where every page up until now has had a lot of panels and movement and dialogue and sound effects. And this final page is wordless, right? And so you just have like blowing wind and these vehicles driving off. And I think it's because we're not behind the vehicles like driving off into the sunset or into the horizon. That to me, sort of in a traditional way, feels like the end. They get away. And this feels like, no, but these 2 terradromes are still there and they take up 2/3 of the page. And so these 2 COBRA vehicles that the Joes have commandeered, the sort of the emotional note, the like story beat that I'm seeing, the visual doesn't feel like a final page where like the story ends. And so either I want one of those 2 things that I just described, or like to be continued, which they're not doing anymore, which is fine, because that it's gonna go into a collection, and they're not going to put the cover of the next issue on the next page because they don't do that. Skybound doesn't do that. And so yeah, I like, in a general sense, I like this visual of this final page. It's different and interesting, and it is even more of a parallel than the whole issue has been. But the actual like beat of it feels like there was going to be one more page, one more panel, one more character or prop or bit of dialogue. And so I was a little disappointed when I finished this issue.
Yeah, I get that feeling. It's sort of, given the high stakes particularly, it sort of seems to fizzle out slightly and left a little bit open-ended, that they're going, but the hazmat team has been called in to actually do the real stuff of resolving the situation. And given the inhospitable environments, when will they come? What will they do? They've left all of this dangerous stuff behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, is there a different version of the last page where you instead or also have Duke and Mainframe and Psych Out and Stalker back in the pit at the computer screen saying, like, we can't send the hazmat team. Airtight's plane went down. And it's like, oh no, well, now that next issue is going to pick up like what's happening to the hazmat team or teams, and like you guys actually have to stay there after all, or it's like hazmat team's on its way, but we're also showing night ravens on radar heading toward you. It's like, and so if this was going to be a self-contained issue, I think I needed more of a feeling that it really is done on this last page. And if there was going to be to be continued, I wanted more of that.
Yeah. I think to some degree, my satisfaction with this issue is a little bit predicated on, is this actually a real one and done, or is there more to come from this same storyline? Because if it's not quite wrapped up in a bow and there is more to come, then perhaps that niggling feeling of it being a little bit unresolved, it sort of goes away to a little bit more. But yeah,
as a comparison, was it 314? What was the fill-in issue that was written by Hama and drawn by Andrew Cronky? That issue, I don't remember quite what happens in the issue. I know that they're finding a hostage, and then there's a little bit of a twist, right. And there's some like choreography where they're going down some stairs, which I really liked. And it's not, maybe it's not a fully fair comparison, because I think that issue just had like an A story. I don't think it had an A and a B story. And if it did have an A and a B story, they were not set up as sort of mirrors of each other the way that this is. And so that issue's ending would have to be different than this issue's ending.
It was 314. Okay, that felt very much more as a one in done without too much sort of dangling plot threads. Whereas this one feels like it's more situated in the ongoing story dynamics and may potentially be picked up on down the road. But I think we've thoroughly covered this issue.
No, I have more to say. My slight disappointment at the end of the story was then sort of added upon by my slight disappointment with the letters page.
Fair enough.
Because all right, so editor Ben Abernathy is someone, I think a lot of people who read comics do not pay attention to editors. And I have paid some attention to editors over the years because, I'm reading G.I. Joe and starting to memorize names, and issues earlier than I was reading originally had different editors. And then they're doing other things like, oh, the person who's editing X-Men used to edit G.I. Joe, or, oh, this editor is now like over at DC. It's like, I wonder what that means. Or I wonder what influence they have, or, did they like Larry? Did Larry like them? And, you read interviews with editors or their blogs, and you start to see that, there's some editors who are super smart and thoughtful about books and do great work getting, the best work out of the creative team. And there are other editors who are just kind of hanging on. Okay, so Ben Abernathy is one of those editors who, when he was doing stuff for Wildstorm like 15 years ago, it's like, I think this guy is one of the good editors. And that he's been hired relatively recently at Skybound was cool. And that he's in charge of the Energon universe was cool, particularly since the person who had been in charge of the Energon universe, Sean Mankiewicz, is probably too busy to also be editing a line of books, because he's the manager of Skybound or something.
Mm-hmm.
So if editor Alex Antone is away on paternity leave, it's like, oh, cool. Ben Abernathy, who's already editing a G.I. Joe book, can edit this G.I. Joe book. So this is the first letters page where he's answering the letters. And I kind of felt like I wanted him to call in someone who was more familiar with G.I. Joe to answer the letters, because his answers seemed a little bit like, this is great. I don't know. So the first person writes in and refers to some of these new characters like Mongoose, maybe not Mongoose specifically, but some of the other ones, and says like they do have file cards, they don't. And I was a little unclear on what that meant. If it's like fan written ones or like classified ones, or were they online but not as toys? And then someone else asks about them. And Ben Abernathy is like, yeah, I don't know. This other letter writer had a different idea. And I kind of need the editor of the book to either have the definitive answer or to do the like Marvel thing where it's like, you never know. It's like, is Zartan going to come back? Is Serpenter going to come back? Is G.I. Joe going to cross over with Transformers? Like the rule is you don't say no, because that's like frowning. And if it's a kid writing in, you're making them feel bad. The rule is if you can't say yes, you say maybe, right? It's like, is Wolverine going to come back from the dead? It's like, maybe. It's like, you never know. Keep reading. And I needed a little more of that and a little more of, the final letter, question number 2. Mr. Abernathy's answer is, this is an excellent question and could be a lot of fun. I'll run it up the chain of command. And it's sort of like, yeah, I want a little bit more of the like, we might try that, and a little less of like, I don't know. But, if Ben Abernathy was already editing the entire Energon Universe line and his boss says, the Hama book doesn't have an editor for a month or 4. Can you also do this? Right? Maybe the creative consultant would be available to help Mr. Abernathy answer some letters, or also I wrote a letter and I thought it was going to get printed this issue and it wasn't, and I shouldn't have expected it because then it won't happen, and it wasn't. And so I was also bummed about that. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe. Where are we? Was there a reference to any specific issues? I think they're probably just still a bit. Oh, here we go. There was a reference to issue 317, and I think your issue was about like 319. Or actually, they do reference 319. We'll see. I'll run it past the chain of command. Maybe in the future.
Maybe we'll run your
letter. We've got planned for our future letter columns.
I've had letters printed in 2 different versions, 3 different versions of G.I. Joe. I get all of my talking about G.I. Joe yucks out on Talking Joe, so it really is okay. I do think it was a good letter, but I'm pretty visible for my interest in G.I. Joe, and there are certainly deserving people out there who have never gotten a letter printed. Although I keep seeing, Ted Skinny Jacobson and Gene Kendall, they keep getting repeat letters. I bet it's Mark Sedenfellow's going to get another letter in before I do.
Well, I did write in one for 320 and 321, so we shall see.
Well, I'm going to write in one about the coloring mistake in 322, and also ask them to double check the credits on the cover to Compendium 3.
Indeed. Right. So I did send a little note to them as well about the preview for the latest issue that had a preview, which I think was either 323 or 324, which had Dreadnought spelt with an extra C. Right. Okay. G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 323, our next issue. Arah 323 is out December 10th, 2025. The blurb is that COBRA Resurgent. COBRA Commander begins a new era of COBRA, but are his enemies one step ahead? I feel like it's a callback to like almost that sort of issue 100 type of I'm back kind of phase where COBRA Commander comes back from the wilderness, aka Destro's dungeon, after he escaped from Scotland not too long ago. So we'll cover that after it comes out. And we'll also be covering the Energon Universe issues as they are coming out bi-weekly. So we've kicked off with Dreadnought War in issue 13, and issue 14 should be this time next week. So, Tim, where can you be found when you're not talking to me about all things G.I. Joe?
My creative partners and I have a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@AtomicAbe. If you like Clarissa Explains It All or the Chuck Norris TV show Walker, Texas Ranger, check out our recent videos on that. One's a factual piece and one's an opinion piece. I own a comic book store just outside of Boston, Hub Comics, and I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, realamericanbook.com.
Very good. You can find us in the normal places. Talking Joe is the website has links to all of those places. If you've not liked and subscribed, please do that. Leave a comment in the video if you're watching it on YouTube, or give us a 5-star rating on your favourite podcast platform, and also get involved in the discussion over at the Facebook group. You can also get involved by joining the Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Rob, Shane, Chris, Simon, Joe, Craig, Frank D, Shane V2. What does this version have, Tim?
I think he's just wearing a giant winter coat.
Fair enough.
Covering up whatever clothing he's got on normally.
I was about to say he's got the number 813 down his side. Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, Gary V, and Coldroff, they are getting early access to episodes like this one. Behind the scenes reveal, we've recorded this in advance because Tim's assembly required. And and also get that warm glow from being a member of the Patreon. So, Tim, I think that is us done. But before we go, can you just leave us some words of wisdom, please?
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.